A smile is often misunderstood as something small, something light, and sometimes even something superficial. Yet, in its very simplicity lies a profound expression of human nature and inner being. When one studies the nature of a smile, it becomes clear that it is far more than an arrangement of lips, far more than a gesture of politeness, and far more than a mask to hide pain. A smile has a weight, a presence, and an energy that cannot be denied. It reveals, it connects, and it transforms. At its essence, a smile is not something that can be forced into existence. It is a reflection of an inner state, a resonance between body and mind. When a person is aligned within themselves, when there is harmony in thought and clarity in heart, the smile arises effortlessly. This kind of smile carries with it an authenticity that cannot be imitated. It is recognized immediately by those who see it, not through the eyes but through the energy it communicates. It softens the air in the room, it changes the space between two people, and it holds the capacity to disarm tension. A smile is also a bridge. When two people exchange a smile, an invisible thread of connection is created. Words may not be spoken, and yet entire conversations can be understood through this silent language. In a world that often struggles with communication, where words are twisted, misunderstood, or burdened with hidden intentions, a genuine smile requires no translation. It speaks directly to the human within the human, bypassing cultural boundaries, social rules, and mental judgments. The nature of a smile also reveals something about the paradox of strength. Many assume that strength comes from being hard, unyielding, and resistant. Yet the power of a smile shows that true strength can be soft, open, and effortless. To smile, even when faced with hardship, is not to deny the weight of suffering, but to transcend it. It demonstrates that one's spirit remains untouched, that even in difficulty, there is light within. Such a smile can be more powerful than any words of encouragement because it embodies resilience without speaking of it. In spiritual traditions, a smile has often been considered a form of meditation in action. When one sits quietly and allows the breath to flow naturally, when one observes the body and becomes aware of the present moment, the corners of the mouth sometimes lift without effort. It is not a deliberate act. It is the body's way of expressing that harmony has been found inside. This gentle smile is subtle, almost invisible to the outer world, but it radiates inwardly. It nourishes the nervous system, it calms the heart, and it reminds the mind that peace is not something to be searched for outside. It is cultivated within. The smile is also deeply connected to healing. When the body is tense, when emotions are heavy, and when the mind is restless, the muscles of the face reflect that inner struggle. But when one chooses to bring awareness to the act of smiling, even gently, it signals to the body to release, to soften, and to relax. Science has shown that smiling can shift brain chemistry, releasing neurotransmitters that reduce stress and elevate mood. Beyond the scientific explanation, what matters is the experience to feel how something as simple as allowing a smile can change the rhythm of breath, the quality of thought, and the way one perceives the world around them. It is important, however, to recognize the difference between a smile that is worn as a mask and one that arises from the depth of being. Many people smile to hide, to please, or to perform. Such a smile has no roots and therefore it cannot nourish. It is like painting the surface of a tree without watering the roots. The true smile, the smile that is alive, is not placed on the face but flows out of presence. It comes when there is no inner resistance, when acceptance replaces struggle, and when life is allowed to unfold without force. The nature of a smile is also inseparable from gratitude. When the heart is touched by even the simplest realization, that the breath continues, that the sun rises, that water flows, that the body still carries life, then gratitude awakens. Out of gratitude arises joy, and out of joy arises a smile. It is not dependent on wealth, on possessions, or on circumstances. The smile of gratitude is independent. It does not wait for conditions to be perfect, because it knows perfection exists in the very act of being alive. There is also a mysterious quality to a smile. It can enter a room before words are spoken. It can linger long after the moment has passed. Sometimes the memory of someone's smile stays with a person for years, resurfacing in unexpected times, bringing comfort without reason. This mystery is part of its power. The smile is not bound by time, it travels beyond the immediate moment. Its energy continues, like ripples moving outward across still water. When we speak of energy, most people think of what can be measured. Electricity, heat, light, things that can be calculated, expressed in numbers, captured through tools. But the type of energy that guides human life, that shifts the way we perceive the world, that shapes relationships, choices, and growth is not the kind that can be seen with the eyes or registered on machines. This energy is subtle, yet it is undeniable. It moves between people without words, it fills a room without effort, it lingers long after an encounter has ended. Energy is not visible, but it is always present, and its impact is stronger than most are willing to admit. If you have ever walked into a space and immediately felt heavy, uneasy, or restless, then you have experienced energy without seeing it. If you have been in the presence of someone whose calmness spreads like water, quieting the minds of those around them, you have also felt it. The eyes cannot capture this, but the body knows. The heart recognizes. The skin responds. This is the truth about energy. It does not need to be seen to be real. And in many cases, what is unseen is what carries the most weight. The mistake that many make is trying to rationalize everything only through what can be proven physically. They rely on evidence that can be touched, recorded, or verified, while overlooking the signals that are constantly being transmitted through silence, gestures, breathing, and intention. Yet the most meaningful transformations in human life happen not through visible forces, but through subtle ones. A word of encouragement at the right moment can restore faith in someone who was lost. A single act of kindness can shift the trajectory of an entire day. None of this can be measured, yet it is deeply felt. Energy resides in attention. Where your attention goes, energy flows. This is why focusing on negativity multiplies negativity. It is not because darkness has more power, but because you continue to feed it with your awareness. The same is true for light, gratitude, and strength. When you direct attention toward these qualities, you increase them within yourself and extend them outward. Others will feel this shift, even if no word is spoken. It is why being in the presence of someone who lives with integrity and peace can be so moving. You are not responding to what you see, but to what you feel radiating from them. This is why discipline of mind and body matters. If your thoughts are chaotic, your energy will carry chaos. If your intentions are unclear, your energy will be fragmented. Even when you do not speak, the world can sense what you carry within. Silence does not hide energy, it amplifies it. A quiet mind that is heavy with fear will spread unease, while a quiet mind that is rooted in stillness will spread peace. What you cultivate inwardly is never confined to yourself. It is broadcast into the environment around you. Energy also responds to release. When emotions are held tightly, when resentment, anger, or fear are suppressed, that energy does not disappear. It sits within the body, shaping posture, expression, and tone of voice. Others will feel it even if you never say a word. But when you learn to let go, when you release the weight of these emotions, your energy transforms. You no longer carry tension, and those around you no longer feel its pressure. This is why practices such as meditation, breathwork, or mindful movement are so powerful. They are ways of transforming inner energy into something lighter, clearer, more aligned. Relationships are built and broken on energy long before words play a role. A smile that is forced cannot be hidden. A presence that is restless cannot be disguised. People are sensitive to what lies beneath the surface, even if they cannot explain it. The energy you bring into interactions will always be remembered more than the words you say. This is why intention matters more than presentation, and authenticity matters more than appearance. When energy is genuine, it resonates deeply. When it is false, it unsettles. Even without explanation, the unseen nature of energy also means that the work of aligning it begins within. You cannot demand others to feel your peace if you do not live it. You cannot expect others to trust your strength if it is not grounded in truth. To transform your energy is to transform your inner world, and in doing so, you transform how the world responds to you. Every practice of patience, every moment of awareness, every act of compassion shapes the current you carry. This current moves beyond you, touching others, shaping environments, altering outcomes. Energy is the silent communicator. It transcends language, culture, and background. A stranger's compassion can comfort more than words you understand. A shared silence can say more than hours of conversation. These moments are proof that energy is more powerful than what can be spoken. To cultivate awareness of this is to gain influence not by force, but by presence. Power does not always announce itself loudly. Often, it is felt in the stillness of someone who carries balance within. The deeper you go into understanding energy, the more you realize that your life is not determined only by what you do, but by what you carry while doing it. The same action can uplift or harm depending on the energy behind it. A word spoken with anger can wound, while the same word spoken with love can heal. A hand extended with sincerity can transform a life, while one extended with pride can create distance. It is not the action alone, but the energy infused within it that makes the difference. This is why self-awareness is not optional. Without it, you may believe you are acting with kindness while your energy communicates resentment. You may think you are silent while your energy is shouting. Awareness allows you to notice the energy you project and to refine it so that what you send into the world aligns with what you truly intend. The discipline of awareness is not only for your own growth, but for the harmony of everyone you encounter. Respect for experience is not simply about honoring the years that have passed. It is about understanding the depth that life has carved into someone's existence. Experience is the teacher that arrives without being asked, the one who does not announce its lessons, but instead leaves them imprinted on the body, the mind, and the spirit. Respecting experience means recognizing that what has been lived through is more than just a story. It is a form of wisdom shaped by trial, by suffering, by perseverance, and by endurance. The value of experience lies not in how long someone has lived, but in how fully they have faced what life has demanded of them. In a world that glorifies speed, youth, and constant novelty, the tendency is to overlook the silent power of experience. Many want results immediately, answers instantly, and success without the slow unfolding of time. But life does not bend to impatience. It teaches through moments that must be endured, through challenges that cannot be skipped, and through pain that cannot be bypassed. To respect experience is to acknowledge that every scar, every failure, every moment of doubt carries within it an invisible weight of wisdom. These are not decorations to be hidden or dismissed. They are the true markers of someone's journey, signs that they have walked a path with obstacles and still continued forward. When you meet someone with experience, you are not simply encountering another person. You are meeting the weight of their past, the discipline of their lessons, and the resilience they have cultivated. Their presence itself is often quieter, more grounded, less shaken by the noise of superficiality. The respect for experience does not come from words they may share, but from the energy they carry. There is a certain stability in those who have lived deeply, a kind of unshakable calm that comes from knowing they have survived storms and understood the impermanence of both joy and suffering. Respect for experience also means respecting the process by which it is earned. No one arrives at wisdom without mistakes, without failure, without misjudgments. The perfection that so many chase is an illusion. It is in the imperfection that growth is hidden. The experienced person has likely walked paths of doubt, has lost things they thought were permanent, and has faced moments where everything they believed was questioned. This confrontation with uncertainty, with change, with the collapse of illusions is what creates depth. To dismiss the experience of another is to overlook the lessons they have gathered through struggles you may never have seen. There is also a humility that comes from truly respecting experience. It reminds us that knowledge is not simply found in books or theories, but in life itself. A lesson lived has a different weight than a lesson read. It is embodied, it shapes behavior, it refines choices. Respecting experience requires listening, not just to the words, but to the silence between the words, to the pauses that reveal thought, to the restraint that reveals discipline. Often, the most profound wisdom is carried not in endless explanation, but in a single sentence forged from decades of living. Experience teaches that life is not a straight line, but a series of cycles, rises and falls, beginnings and endings. Those who have walked through many of these cycles begin to understand patterns that are invisible to the impatient eye. They learn that joy is often followed by struggle, and that loss is often followed by renewal. They learn that holding on too tightly leads to suffering, and that surrender often opens the path forward. Respecting this insight means respecting that some truths cannot be rushed, they must be lived into. Another dimension of respect for experience lies in recognizing that what appears ordinary may carry extraordinary weight. The person who has lived through hardship without recognition, who has endured in silence, may carry more resilience than the one who loudly announces their strength. Experience is often quiet, hidden behind eyes that have seen much more than they will ever say. Respecting it requires sensitivity and awareness that there is more beneath the surface than can be immediately observed. When we cultivate respect for experience, we also cultivate respect for time itself. We begin to realize that everything meaningful takes time to unfold. Relationships, mastery, healing, and growth. The culture of speed often tries to convince us that shortcuts exist, but those who have lived long enough know that shortcuts often lead to emptiness. True experience cannot be faked or rushed. It is earned by walking through the fire, by carrying burdens, by learning the hard way, and by still choosing to move forward. Respecting experience also means respecting our own. Too often, we dismiss our own past as unworthy or irrelevant. Yet every mistake, every disappointment, every small victory adds to the reservoir of who we are. To deny our experiences is to deny ourselves. Respect for experience begins inward, acknowledging the lessons carved into our own life and allowing them to guide how we act, how we think, and how we relate to others. By respecting our own journey, we naturally learn to respect the journeys of others, no matter how different they may appear. Experience creates resilience, but it also creates compassion. Those who have suffered tend to recognize suffering in others. Those who have been broken tend to be gentler with the broken. Respect for experience means recognizing this compassion as part of the wisdom gained. It is not simply the ability to endure, but the ability to see with clarity, to understand with empathy, and to guide without arrogance. This is why the presence of someone with experience can feel both grounding and healing at the same time. They have walked through darkness and returned with light that does not blind but illuminates. Respecting experience is ultimately about seeing beyond appearances. It is about realizing that life's greatest teachers often do not stand on stages or hold positions of power. They are sometimes the ones who have quietly persevered, who have endured without recognition, and who carry within them a deep understanding of life's truths. Their experience may never be written in books, but it is carried in their being. And when we learn to respect that, we begin to understand that every life, no matter how ordinary it may seem, holds within it extraordinary depth. When we look into the mirror, most of the time we do not see clearly. We see the reflections shaped by memory, judgment, and the weight of experiences carried through time. What appears in front of us is not just the face, but the sum of all our opinions, doubts, regrets, and expectations projected upon it. This is why the mirror often feels heavy, and instead of showing simplicity, it reminds us of burdens. But there exists another mirror, one untouched by the stains of life. It is the mirror of innocence. It does not compare. It does not criticize. It does not evaluate. It simply reflects. Innocence is often misunderstood as ignorance or naivety, but in its true form it is clarity. It is the state before interpretation, before the mind labels something as good or bad, right or wrong, acceptable or unacceptable. It is the natural freshness of being untouched by the dust of judgments. To return to innocence is not to become childish, but to see with the eyes of a child again. Eyes that are open to what is, without the need to manipulate it. The mirror of innocence is within every human being. It is hidden beneath layers of stories we tell ourselves. Each story becomes a veil. One veil says, I must be successful to be worthy. Another says, I am defined by what others think of me. Another whispers, I am not enough. With each layer, the mirror becomes clouded. We still look into it, but what we see is distorted. We mistake the veil for the truth. And then life begins to feel heavy, as if everything we do must serve these illusions. But innocence waits beneath. It has never disappeared. It has only been covered. Just as the sky remains untouched when clouds pass, so too does the mirror of innocence remain untouched by the noise of the world. The question is, how do we return to it? To return, one must first notice the weight carried inside. Notice how quickly the mind judges. Notice how often it seeks control. Notice how it holds on to memory as if it were a possession. These movements create turbulence like ripples on the surface of water. And just as a disturbed pond cannot reflect clearly, the mind disturbed by constant activity cannot show us the purity of innocence. Only in stillness does reflection become true. Innocence arises when stillness is practiced. Not the stillness of the body alone, but the stillness of the mind that no longer rushes to conclusions. It is the stillness of watching without immediately reacting. To look at a flower and simply see it, without naming it, without recalling its price, without comparing it to another. to listen to another person and truly hear them, without preparing a response, without measuring whether their words fit into our expectations. In these moments, the mirror clears and innocence shines. The power of innocence is that it does not divide. It does not create conflict. When you see with innocence, you are not against life, you are with it. This is why innocence has strength. It cannot be broken because it does not cling to anything that can be lost. Innocence flows. It adapts. It observes. It learns without the arrogance of claiming to know everything. It does not pretend. It simply is. Many people search for peace in complicated practices, in achievements, in possessions. But peace is already present when one looks through the mirror of innocence. It is not something to be added, it is something to be uncovered. Imagine the mind as a canvas covered with countless strokes of paint, each representing an opinion, a memory, a fear. The innocence is the original white space of the canvas. No matter how much paint is applied, the base remains. To find it again is not to destroy what has been painted, but to see through it, to remember what is underneath. The mirror of innocence also reveals truth about relationships. Most conflicts between people arise not from what is said, but from the filters through which it is heard. Words are interpreted through past wounds, through insecurities, through hidden desires. But when innocence listens, there is no filter. There is simply presence. This listening itself heals. It allows connection without the interference of ego. When innocence looks inward, it transforms the way one relates to the self. Instead of fighting with imperfections, innocence accepts them as part of the whole. Instead of resisting emotions, it watches them come and go like clouds. This does not mean weakness. It means clarity. Because to see without resistance is to allow energy to flow freely. And what flows does not stagnate. It transforms. The mirror of innocence is not something distant or mystical. It is here now, behind every layer of thought. When you close your eyes and release judgment for even a single breath, you touch it. When you walk in silence and simply feel the air against your skin, you are in it. When you laugh without calculation, when you cry without shame, when you breathe without control, innocence is there. It is not something you must achieve, because it is already what you are beneath all ideas of what you should be. The difficulty is not in finding it, but in daring to put down what clouds it. The mind resists letting go, because identity has been built on those clouds. To step into innocence feels like stepping into emptiness. Yet in that emptiness lies the fullness of life. The mirror reflects everything as it is, unfiltered, untouched, and in this reflection is the beauty of truth. Presence is something most people underestimate. In a world where noise dominates, where movement is constant and distractions are endless, presence appears almost invisible. It is not loud, it does not announce itself, and it does not demand attention. Yet it is the very force that shapes how others experience us, how we experience ourselves, and how we connect with life. Presence is not about speaking more, showing more, or doing more. It is about reducing the unnecessary, silencing the excess, and arriving fully into the now. The subtle power of presence is not measured by quantity, but by quality. Not by how much we do, but by the depth of how we are. When you enter a room, your presence arrives before your words. People sense it in the way you breathe, the way you stand, the way your energy flows without you trying. Some carry presence that calms. Some carry presence that inspires. Some carry presence that unsettles. None of this has to do with external display. It comes from the state of inner alignment. Presence cannot be faked. It cannot be copied. It emerges from how deeply one is rooted in awareness. This is why you can feel drawn to someone who speaks little, while feeling drained by someone who speaks endlessly. Presence radiates without needing to prove itself. To cultivate presence, one must first understand absence. Absence is when the body is here, but the mind is elsewhere. Absence is when words are spoken but not rooted in awareness. Absence is when actions are performed without intention, only out of habit or restlessness. This absence is common in daily life. People walk but are not truly walking. They listen but are not truly hearing. They look but are not truly seeing. To return from absence into presence requires a choice, and this choice is not made once but again and again each moment of the day. The subtle power of presence lies in its quiet influence. A person who is present changes the atmosphere around them. Their calm becomes contagious. Their groundedness gives others stability. They need not argue to be convincing, for their very being transmits clarity. Presence reduces unnecessary tension. both within oneself and in others. Imagine sitting with someone who does not rush to fill silence, who does not need to prove their importance through words. That stillness alone becomes a teaching, a reminder that depth exists beyond noise. Presence is also a form of strength. It is the strength to stay still when everything pulls you into distraction. It is the strength to remain grounded when emotions attempt to sweep you away. Presence transforms reaction into response. In reaction, energy scatters. In response, energy concentrates. When you are present, you are no longer dragged by impulses but guided by awareness. This strength is subtle, yet it surpasses the strength of physical force or clever arguments. It is the strength of being unshaken in the middle of turbulence. The cultivation of presence begins with the breath. Breath anchors awareness into the body. When one follows the rhythm of inhalation and exhalation, attention returns to now. Presence is not about controlling life, but about noticing life. By training the mind to return again and again to the simplicity of breathing, the practice of presence deepens. Slowly, ordinary activities become gateways into awareness. Drinking tea, walking, listening. Each moment becomes an opportunity to live with depth instead of surface. There is a subtle power in presence because it teaches without teaching. When a person embodies awareness, others feel it without needing explanation. Children calm down in the presence of someone steady. A tense conversation softens when one person remains deeply present. Even animals respond differently when approached with true awareness instead of scattered energy. Presence is communication beyond words, beyond gestures, beyond explanation. It is life itself speaking through you. Presence also reveals the truth about connection. Many people think connection comes from sharing words, sharing experiences, or agreeing on ideas. But true connection is born from being fully there. When you are present with another, even silence becomes meaningful. The other person feels seen without judgment, heard without interruption, and valued without condition. Presence eliminates the distance created by distraction. It allows one to experience another as they truly are, not as one imagines them to be. In solitude, presence reveals another dimension. When you sit alone but are deeply present, loneliness does not arise. Presence turns solitude into richness. It transforms silence into fullness. The restless mind that searches for distraction begins to settle. And in this settling, one discovers a power that does not depend on external validation. To be present with oneself is to discover a kind of companionship that is steady, unbreakable, and free from the fluctuations of the external world. The subtle power of presence also extends to creation. Whatever is done with presence carries a different quality. A word spoken in presence has more weight than 100 words spoken in distraction. A gesture made with presence has more impact than actions repeated without awareness. Even the simplest act, such as pouring water or lighting a candle, becomes meaningful when infused with presence. Creation rooted in presence endures because it is born from awareness, not from compulsion. Ultimately, presence is not something to chase. The more you seek to appear present, the more artificial it becomes. Presence arises naturally when unnecessary noise is reduced, when attention is gathered instead of scattered, when awareness is placed in the living moment. It is subtle, almost invisible, yet it changes everything. The power of presence lies not in being noticed, but in transforming the atmosphere without needing to be noticed at all. There are languages that need no words, and yet they speak directly to the heart. A smile belongs to this category. It is not simply the upward curve of lips or an expression that passes quickly across the face. It is a gesture, a silent messenger that can disarm hostility, dissolve tension, and bridge the gap between strangers. A smile carries within it a teaching, one that is not explained but felt. It reminds us of the invisible threads connecting human beings, of the possibility of warmth even in moments of coldness, and of the strength that comes from gentleness. To understand a smile is to see that its power does not rely on explanations. Unlike speeches, debates, or arguments, a smile needs no translation. Its meaning is immediate. When it appears, the observer feels it without needing to analyze. This is why it can reach across cultures, beyond languages, and even into places where words are forbidden or suppressed. A smile can enter without resistance because it does not demand, it simply offers. In this offering lies its lesson, the lesson of presence, the lesson of giving without asking, the lesson of strength without force. Consider the difference between a forced smile and a genuine one. The forced smile feels hollow, shallow, and heavy. It carries within it the weight of pretension. The genuine smile, however, arises from within, often without conscious effort. It flows naturally like water from a spring because it is not constructed but released. This teaches us something vital about authenticity. When we pretend, the world notices. When we allow our inner being to radiate, others cannot help but respond. Thus, a smile is not about showing teeth, it is about showing truth. The lesson of a smile is also the lesson of stillness. It emerges not from a mind that is racing with endless concerns, but from a state of presence. A smile that arises from within is the reflection of inner silence, a reflection of calmness, of being in tune with oneself. Such a smile carries healing power. It softens the hearts of those who are burdened. It lightens the spirits of those who feel heavy. And yet, it does all of this without speaking a single word. In silence, it teaches compassion. In silence, it teaches resilience. In silence, it teaches that there is strength in softness. When conflict arises, words often sharpen divisions. People defend, argue, and protect their positions. But a smile, if it is authentic, has the ability to dissolve the hardness of confrontation. It does not deny differences, nor does it erase pain, but it brings a different kind of energy into the space. It introduces light where there is shadow. It is not about winning or losing, it is about shifting the atmosphere. The lesson here is profound. Not all battles are fought with swords or words. Some are won with gentleness, with patience, and with a smile that refuses to participate in hostility. A smile also reveals much about the one who carries it. It shows a relationship with the self. For a smile to appear naturally, there must be an inner alignment. If the inner world is restless, angry, or filled with resistance, the face cannot hide it for long. But when there is acceptance, when there is clarity, the smile flows as a natural expression. This is why some smiles feel unforgettable. They are not attached to beauty or perfection of the face, but to the truth that shines through them. Such smiles are remembered not because they were seen, but because they were felt. There is also humility in a smile. It does not shout, it does not impose, and it does not claim superiority. It enters a space quietly and yet transforms it completely. This is a silent lesson in itself. Not everything that changes the world does so loudly. Sometimes transformation happens in subtle gestures, in soft tones, in movements that are barely noticeable. A smile embodies this principle. It demonstrates that small acts, if rooted in sincerity, have immense power. In daily life, people carry burdens that are invisible. Stress, fear, uncertainty, and sorrow accompany many in silence. And while grand solutions are not always available, sometimes what is needed is a simple reminder that lightness still exists. A smile given at the right moment can become that reminder. It can make another person feel seen without words, valued without explanation, and understood without discussion. It teaches the lesson of presence. Sometimes it is not answers that heal, but simply being there with openness. A smile also holds the quality of impermanence. It arises, shines, and fades away. Yet in that brief appearance, it can plant a seed. The seed of hope, of trust, of possibility. The smile itself is temporary, but the memory it leaves can remain. This, too, is a teaching that moments do not have to last long to be meaningful. Even fleeting gestures can carry lasting impact when they come from the right place. To smile, therefore, is not a shallow act. It is a practice, a discipline, and a reflection of one's state of being. It is an outward expression of inner cultivation. Each smile has the potential to remind us of simplicity, to ground us in humanity, and to awaken us to connection. It shows that wisdom is not always found in complex words, but sometimes in silence, sometimes in gestures, sometimes in the effortless expression of kindness that needs no explanation.